Thank you very much, fellow Africans, and welcome once again to our today's episode of the Change for African campaign. Fellow Africans, being on Tuesday, it's about our second pillar of the Change for African campaign, a pillar by the name Potential. You all know that pillar number 2 of our journey towards the Change for Africa. So therefore, fellow Africans, today the very area to help us exemplify on this area, speaking about Africa's potential. Once some very critical areas are tapped into, the Africa's potential will be unleashed enormously. And so I'm speaking about the UNSDG goals, and I'll be going through these goals until we do away with them. We are able to cover up everything about this goal. And so today I'll be going to goal number 9 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And the goal number 9 is all about industrialization, all about innovation, and all about infrastructure. Those three areas, whereby about infrastructure, they want to build a resilient infrastructure. These are goals that are adopted in 2015 by the United Nations, whose headquarters is in New York, United States of America. And I want to promote sustainable industrialization and fostering innovation to drive economic growth and development. Those three areas. So speaking about all three areas, or this goal number 9 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, now in the context of Africa, because we are Africans and Africa is our business, so we speak about Africa. And so speaking about Africa, in this space we need to understand what is the current state when it comes to Africa's terms with industrialization, with innovation, and with infrastructure. What is the state of all these three things, or what is the state of this goal in Africa since the goals were adopted, or since the strategy was adopted in 2015 by the United Nations? Remember that many of the African countries are members of the United Nations. And so it is a very critical area, because remember, many of the African countries are actually developing countries or very poor. So realizing such goals, because there are 17 goals, and putting in mind that the very key or the very target area, the very critical areas that this goal targets is develop quality infrastructure, promote industrialization, enhance small and medium small enterprise, invest in research and innovation, sustainable and resilient infrastructure, and then increase financial and technical support. These are some of the areas that this goal targets. And looking at the context of Africa, many of the African countries, speaking about infrastructure, it is still not up to standard. Speaking about industrialization, we are yet to be a global industry, not so much good at that, and more so sustainable industrialization. Sustainable industrialization is whereby, though we are putting up industries but these industries are not part of they do not contribute to maybe things like climate change, but we are having sustainable industries, or we are having sustainable industrialization that is able to make sure that at the same time that they help us to manufacture things, and but then they also help us to conserve the climate. So that is maybe what we may call sustainable industrialization. And so this one in Africa, it is still an issue of that needs a lot of thinking and a lot of strategies to be able to come up with to be able to make this goal a living goal. And then remember, these goals, actually we have these goals are 17, but then this is a very critical goal, whereby if this goal was to be fully implemented, meaning that we have requisite infrastructure, meaning that we have industries in place, meaning that innovation is booming actually in Africa, then we'll be solving other goals. We actually be achieving other goals through this goal. Putting, for example, goal number 1 about the poverty. This is a goal whereby once we have good infrastructure in place, meaning we are eliminating poverty, because infrastructure will enable us to have that ease. Even if it's about trade, there is that ease of trade across one place to another. That is infrastructure. Industries will be able to create jobs, meaning that the level of poverty or the living standards of our people in Africa will go down, because we are speaking about Africa. And then innovation is whereby now actually innovation, speaking about goal number 4 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, goal by the name quality education. once we have innovation and also infrastructure, it's also related to goal number 4, because about quality education. Because infrastructure, we also speak about what is this infrastructure. Do you have schools, quality schools, quality buildings that can be able to offer the African students a good environment to be able to carry out their academic journeys? That is about infrastructure. Also this the roads, they're supposed to move from one place to another. It's all about infrastructure and related to some of these goals, quality education. And so these are issues that and also to goal number 13 about the climate action. Once we have sustainable industrialization in Africa, meaning things to do with the ravaging effects or the ripple effects of climate change, or all these things stories about climate change, will be able to it's a mitigation measure once we have sustainable industrialization in place for Africa. So these are things that are kind of like related once we are able to fully implement them and focus them on Africa, because I believe that many of these goals, the areas that have not been achieved, it is mainly by the African countries, which are still most of them still developing, and some of them very poor indeed. So these are goals that is very critical. Once we take that time to focus on such a critical goal of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, remember this goal applies to all of us in the world. And so because we are in Africa, we speak for Africa, because we are Africans and Africa is our business. So we may put it that way. And so innovation, as I was saying, it is still an issue by once we have some innovative hubs in Africa that are able to drive solutions based on in the fields of education, a solution in the field of climate action, actually, because we need some modern innovations that can be able to be in the field of climate change, whereby how can innovation and technology be part of solving our problems about climate change and all about climate action. So these are goals that are live and well, and these are goals that are, when they are properly implemented and when they are properly executed, they'll be able to solve many of the problems that our Africans are facing today. And that is what we need to be in our minds now, the innovative mind, the creative mind, and seeing on how we can be problem solvers, be solutions to these many problems that Africa is facing today. So therefore, for Africans, that is where we end our goal number 9, or our discussion about the goal number 9 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 of them. That was goal number 9. Yesterday we spoke about goal number 16, which was about peace, justice, and strong institutions, that we spoke about yesterday. And so let's meet tomorrow as we also tackle another goal of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Remember, these are goals that are these are some of the strategies that we can lean on to be able to make Africa great. Because once we touch on this the areas that these goals are concerned about, then it means we'll be doing what is supposed to be done in Africa. Because speaking about infrastructure, quality education, poverty, climate action, all these things are things that are facing Africans. And once we are able to implement these goals and make them work, then everything is going to be live and well in Africa. These are some of the things that are going to unleash the Africa's potential. The Africa's potential will be seen once these goals are done and once these goals are implemented in place and they are meant to work. Thank you and have an interesting afternoon. This is Change for African campaign.